Level delegation led by China's top economic official Liu He is in Washington, and they're kicking off a major week in ongoing talks to prevent a full-blown trade war. Ahead of these meetings, President Donald Trump announced that he is working to give ZTE a way to get back into business fast. Last month, the U.S. Commerce Department blocked American companies from selling parts to ZTE, a ban that crippled its operations. Now, ZTE's problems with the U.S. have been going on for years now, and let's take a look at how we got to this point. Now, back in 2012, the FBI investigates whether ZTE sold banned technology to Iran, and a U.S. intelligence committee warns ZTE poses a potential security risk because of its ties to the Chinese government. In 2016, the U.S. is fed up and about to slap export restrictions on ZTE. Trading of the company's shares is halted, and by 2017, ZTE admits guilt. It pays a penalty of $892 million and goes through a number of high-level management changes. By January of this year, ZTE has returned to growth and unveils plans to launch a 5G smartphone. But later, 6 U.S. intelligence agencies again warn of security concerns about ZTE. And the Trump administration accuses ZTE of violating a deal in which it agreed to pay over $1 billion for evading U.S. sanctions on North Korea and Iran. The U.S. activates a 7-year export ban on ZTE. Joining me now is Scott Kennedy. He is a director of the Project on Chinese Business and Political Economy at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thank you so much for joining us here on the program. Why does Donald Trump now want to save ZTE?
I don't know if he so much wants to save ZTE as not have it disappear and die as a product of the trade war. Certainly, Xi Jinping reached out to him directly and raised the problems of ZTE and the problems that would create for finding a broader solution. And so I guess he thought in order to get a big deal, that try and figure out a way to address the ZTE problem in a way that was different from what the actions that were taken a couple weeks ago.
And I want to get your thoughts on how the ZTE Trump saga is going to play out long term in China in terms of high tech and innovation. Do you think as a result of this, no matter how talks go, that China under Xi Jinping is going to call for more indigenous technology, more homegrown technology? Because the problem with ZTE and the ban, it was too reliant on American tech.
China is bent on import substitution policy in advanced technologies, and that is not something that has changed as a result of this incident with ZTE. It just reinforces a trend which is already well underway. China is spending in the tens of billions every year in individual sectors to hundreds of billions altogether for import substitution policies. I think the reason China ought to change, and that Xi Jinping and others may, is that they'll find that those policies aren't working, that import substitution really just ends up wasting a lot of money. And the most successful Chinese companies, the most successful Chinese industries are the ones that are more open to global competition, that are more a part of global production networks. And I think the lesson they also may draw is Chinese companies ought to follow the law. And when they follow the law, they're not going to face problems like this.
And where does Trump trade policy on China stand now, you know, after the ZTE saga is playing out? Because on one hand, this is a big reprieve for ZTE. On the other hand, we have Liu He, the top Chinese economic aide in D.C. for talks. Is the Trump team going to stand up to China on issues that matter to U.S. business in China, like IP?
Sure. I don't think that this one move on ZTE means that the Trump administration is ready to cut a deal with the Chinese just on methods to reduce the bilateral trade deficit that the U.S. has. I still think the U.S. is following basically the guidelines set out in the 301 investigation as a way to try and figure out how to improve Chinese protection of IP and make a level playing field. And it's quite possible that they won't find common ground enough to stop the U.S. from implementing higher tariffs in less than 2 weeks' time, and China will retaliate. So I still think that we're headed on a train toward tariffs and a trade war, even though it looks like there's this on ZTE, at least a short-term solution.
Scott Kennedy of CSIS, thank you for joining me.
Sure.